At NordFPV, we normally print using a filament called TPU. This kind of flexible filament that allows us to have parts on our drones that when you crash, they can hold the impact a little bit better. Since the beginning, I've been using a brand that is called Saintsmart. It's very popular. It's kind of like the standard for FPV people that is using 3D printers to use this brand, mainly because it's very easy to print with it. And the quality results that you get are pretty good. But as many brands, as the more famous that they get, the more market that they want, and also the prices increases quite a lot. And since Saintsmart has been raising those prices quite a lot, I've been in the hunt for new TPU brands that can offer me that good quality, easy of printing, but with a little bit better price. Talking about filaments is actually not easy at all. Recommend one filament over the other is quite difficult because it depends on so many variables, right? Like it could be that in your printer you have some specific mechanics that allows one filament brand to work and the other one doesn't. Like for example, on my V0 I have some brands that I can't print, but on the V2.4 Voron it prints quite well. So what I want to do today is to share with you my experience with a few brands that I'm finding that works well, that are comparable to Saintsmart and giving you a better price. And I'm going to mention some that are more difficult for me, just to have a point of comparison so you understand what I'm talking about. Let's start talking about the Saintsmart. This one I'm going to use as a base for comparison to everything else because, as I was saying before, it's a good brand. It gives a good results when you're printing. It's easy to use and it's so popular that you will find a lot of profiles, printing profiles for almost every printer out there that works with TPU using Saintsmart. This is a Chinese manufactured filament. It's so popular that you can find it on almost every Amazon of each country. Here in Europe, in the Amazon Sweden, in the Amazon Spain or Amazon Germany, you find them everywhere around. They are actually quite good on the color variety that they have, since they have solid colors and transparent colors and a lot of different colors. But something that I'm a bit sad about is that they discontinue my preferred color, the mango mojito, which is kind of like the orange that goes very well with the theme of my shop. Flex and therefore TPU can be classified by how hard the plastic is. This is something that is called shore hardness, and this Saintsmart TPU comes at 95A. You can think a little bit about like this. On the lower 90s towards 80s and higher 80s, the TPU is going to be very, very soft. The plastic is going to be very soft. And towards the higher 90s, the TPU is still flexible, but it's going to be much harder. So let's say that Saintsmart is sitting in kind of like in the middle. And this is important for two reasons. One is the crashing capabilities that you're giving to that plastic part when you are flying your drone or when you're building your part. And number two, it's printing. When the filament is very soft, your printer is going to have a much more difficult time pushing that filament through than if the filament is a little bit harder. So in theory, harder filaments should be easier to print than softer filaments. And again, Saintsmart is 95A, which is putting themselves kind of in the middle, in a good position, not that hard, but not that soft either. I've seen a lot of people printing with this that doesn't have any knowledge about 3D printing, and they even without a lot of effort, they get okay results. And if you know what you're doing and you can tune your printer better, you're gonna get fantastic results with this filament. But let's talk about the price. In the US, one of these rolls, which has 800 grams of filament for the 175mm TPU, cost around $31.99. These give you an equivalent to around $4 per 100 grams of filament. And we're going to use this number to compare to the other filaments that I found in the market that I've been testing. So the next one that we're going to talk about is an European filament called Azure film. This one, again, since Saintsmart stopped using or producing my Mango Mojito orange for my drones or for the theme of my shop, I had to look for another orange. And the closest one that I got was this one. Azure, as I'm saying, is an European brand. I don't think you get it in the US unless you buy it directly from them, from their website. They are not huge and they don't have a very big variety of colors, but they have some interesting colors, as this orange that I have in my hand. The shore hardness is higher than Saintsmart at 98A. Going back to the theory that I was explaining before, this is a bit of a harder filament and it should actually help your printer when you are printing. The difference between 98 and 95 is not that much, but the results, the printed part, I find it to be a bit harder and somehow it feels like less wobbling. And if I'm talking about, for example, a camera holder that can be vibrating a bit, this one is a bit harder, and if you print thicker parts, then it feels very solid. One thing that I have to say about the Azure film is that if you think about the quality of printing, even if I have done a lot of work trying to get it to the most perfect tuning for the printer, I'm still like not 100% satisfied with what I get, like compared to Saintsmart. It's good enough. It's more than good, I would say. But if I have to use it as a point of comparison of how easy it is to tune the printer for this filament compared to the Saintsmart, I would say that Saintsmart is easier in that perspective. When we talk about prices for Azure, we have to think first, this is an European shop compared to China. Normally, only because of that, prices are going to be a bit higher. But even if this is a European brand and the prices are supposed or are expected to be higher, we end up with something around 40 euros for a kilo of this filament. That put us at $4.5 per 100 gram. And we said before, Saintsmart, it's around $4 per 100 grams. So Azure, it's definitely more expensive than Saintsmart. The quality is somehow there, but I would say if you have the same color and if you don't have any special reason to go for the Azure, Saintsmart in this case is still winning between the two of them. Color might be one of those reasons that you need to deviate from Saintsmart, but up to you. A good point of Azure film is that I have actually never had any issues with stock. If you think about Saintsmart, there is a lot of times that I need to buy filaments and they are just out of it everywhere in the world. Like I can go to any Amazon in the world and they don't have it. Sometimes they have it in the US and not in Europe, and just shipping from the US to Europe is something that is not ideal, and then therefore I don't buy it. But Saintsmart stock, I guess that because it's popular, it tends to be a little bit sketchy. While the Azure film, they always have it. I have never had problems buying from them, ordering from them. They're pretty fast shipping. So in that perspective, I'm pretty happy with using their filament. Now I'm going to talk about this one, Overture TPU. If you look at many reviews on YouTube for TPU brands, and if you look at Amazon recommendations, this TPU, it's very recommended at a very good price as well. But for me, it has been a head scratcher because I don't know, and I have no idea why. This is the filament that I was talking about that I can't print with my V0. If you touch this filament and you play a little bit with it, you find it to be, I find it to be a bit softer than the other two that I've been mentioning. And even if I did my research on the internet, I can't really find the number, the data sheet saying the short hardness of this TPU. But if I had to guess, I would say that it's on the higher 80s. This could be the reason why my V0 is having problems printing this, mechanical problems, right? As I was saying in the beginning, the softer the filament is, the more work that the printer has to do to push that filament through the extruder to actually melt it. And my V0 might not be strong enough, or might not have the kind of gears that you need to do that. The 2.4, my bigger printer, can print this without any problem, and the results are positive. I mean, I didn't tune the printer that much to work with this since the filament doesn't work on my V0, and I'm not going to be buying something that works in one printer and the other one doesn't, because it would just make my life complicated. Talking about prices for these, that's the strength of this filament, right? 1 kilo of this Overture TPU, it's $26 in Amazon. That is giving us something like $2.6 per 100 gram. And again, we were talking about $4 for the Saintsmart and $4.5 for the Azure. Here we're talking about 2.6 only. That's a very good price, right? But as I mentioned earlier, I can make it work very reliable on my printer. So even if it's very cheap and very tempting, I'm not able to use this constantly. There is another thing that I think, if you look at the roll where this is this kind of paperish roll. A lot of people like that because it's recyclable. It's better than having like a plastic roll like this one, so you can't do much with it. But I find it difficult for me sometimes because I have this kind of spool holders that are rolling all the time. And if this by any reason falls, or I heat it or something, the shape of this spool changes, and then when it's rolling, it's going to be creating some extra friction that you don't want when you are printing. You want those rolls, you want your filament roll just to go freely and don't have any problem with that. There is easy solutions for that as well. I'm not saying that that's a big problem, because you can have one of these rollers, the spool holders that goes in the middle, and then you're not going to have that problem because you're going to be rolling here. But I have 3 different spool holders. All of them are these ones that you sit on top of it, and this kind of paper rollers doesn't go that much with my setup anyway. Lastly, I'm going to talk about this one. This one is called Zero 3D or Zero TPU. I got this because as I was saying, I was hunting for something cheaper than Saintsmart that I could find to print in good quality. And I have to say that I'm very surprised with the printing quality that I'm getting from this manufacturer. They are Chinese as well. And what's really impressive is the price of the filament that I have here in my hand. If you go to any Amazon shop, you get this roll for $22.99, and this is an 800 grams roll, which gives us something around $2.9 per 100 rolls. $4 per 100 grams, $4.5 per 100 grams, $2.6 per 100 grams, and now we're here in $2.9 per 100 grams. And I have to say, with this one, I have no problem printer on any of my printers. The tuning that I had to do was basically copying the Saintsmart and just adapting a bit the temperature, nothing more. So I'm pretty sure that Zero 3D was aiming at doing something very similar to Saintsmart when they manufactured their filament. I have no problem with that, because they are giving me now something of kind of the same quality, same kind of properties as the Saintsmart for much cheaper price. Unfortunately for Zero 3D, they don't have a huge variety of colors. They have kind of basic green, black, yellow, red colors, which for a lot of people is going to be enough. And I will say that for a lot of FPV pilots, black is what they're gonna want. And they have Zero filament, they have in every Amazon shop, they have it. So it's not going to be difficult to find. So far, I've been working with their filament for a while, and they have always had stock. Very friendly people if you communicate with them, and the quality, again, it's very good for what you're getting. So when it comes to what makes a filament good for me to bring it to my shop and to use it to print parts for my customers, I would say that there are three main reasons. Number one is consistency. I want the printer to work without having to retune every time that I change a spool of filament, right? That means that whatever the manufacturer is giving me has to be extremely similar, so I don't have to think about changing, or I don't have to think about doing tuning when changing from one spool to the other, especially if it's the same color, the same brand, the same kind. So that was number one. Number two, it's easy of use. If I'm faced with, for example, a filament like this one, that after spending like a week or more trying to figure out if I could make it work on my V0, if it was something on the profile that I was using, or if it was something mechanic on the printer, those kind of headaches is what I'm trying to avoid when choosing and when looking for a filament, right? There are hundreds of brands. Why am I gonna choose something that is giving me a headache? That doesn't make any sense. So number two is how easy it is for me to get the spool, open the box, put it in the printer, and get some results. That's reason number two. And of course, reason number three is price. I'm using these to create parts for my customers, and I'm going to be charging my customer for those parts. If I'm getting the raw material on the filaments cheaper, that part that I'm going to sell to my customers is going to be cheaper. And I want to try to offer my customers something of good quality, easy to access, and with a good price, right? I don't want to be charging too much for those kind of things. So I would say like this, Saintsmart is definitely the standard. If you want to go for sure something that works and you are maybe starting on 3D printing, well, you might take one roll of Saintsmart, and I'm pretty sure that there is not going to be a bad reason to get that. But now that I have found this Zero 3D printing filament, I'm going to be using that for my shop. I'm going to be shopping them, and I'm actually going to bring them to my own shop, because I think it's worth offering some of the people that has access to 3D printers the option to buy filament a bit cheaper with good quality. Quality is always in my mind, right? So this is what I had for you today. I hope that you enjoy watching this video. I hope that I gave you some kind of good information. And if you're interested in any of these filaments, Saintsmart or Zero, I'm gonna have them in my shop, and you can go there and buy it. Otherwise, you're gonna find both of them on Amazon and many other shops, and you can go and test yourself and hopefully get the same results that I'm getting. Thank you for watching. See you soon.